Hello, everybody. Welcome to Undeclared Bajor, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch.
Yay, there's a name.
Did you forget that we changed the name, or did you remember?
No, I remembered. Yeah.
Okay.
We got a name now. Woo.
That's right. You can find it. You can Google that. That's easily brandable. I mean, we're on the road to fame now. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Yo.
Today we're going to recap, discuss, and rate Season 1, Episode 13, Battle Lines. Alternate title, Live and Let Kai.
Okay, that was good.
Expect full spoilers for this episode, possible minor spoilers for later in the series, but we will try to avoid major spoilers just in case our rewatch is your first watch. This episode originally aired April 25th, 1993. Super Mario Bros. Was the first video game movie. And I guess at the top we should mention the news that very recently, just a few days ago, Louise Fletcher passed away.
Has she appeared yet?
No, but I felt like we had to mention it.
Okay.
She was truly a great villain in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And it's kind of relevant to this episode.
Yeah, it is.
She is a similar character to one that is in this episode.
Well, and her entire storyline is the result of stuff that happens in this episode.
Yeah. So, diving right in, recapping this episode. Cisco, Dax, and O'Brien are looking at some of Ducat's old files they found in the station computer. They include a file on Kira, and O'Brien says they might want to warn her before showing it to her. At that moment, Kira walks in and assures them that she's a big girl and she can handle whatever's in her file. However, after reading the file, she becomes outraged at its assessment of her as an insignificant figure in the Bajoran resistance.
It's interesting to me how this, bears absolutely no relation to anything else that happens in the rest of the episode, really. It's just I thought this, it would come back around somehow, but it really doesn't. It's just no, we just needed a comedy bit of Kira being outraged, or maybe we needed a reminder that she was in the Resistance.
Yeah, I think the point is to do a quick little call out to remind us that she was in the Resistance, because that becomes that relates to a beat that happens later.
Yeah.
Just in case you didn't remember what Kira's backstory was, and it is a pretty funny little moment when she's like, a minor figure who runs errands.
I also like that they don't mention Ducat by name. They're just the last prefect or whatever. Here's some of his stuff.
I think maybe in universe that could be explained by they just don't know Ducat that well.
Yeah,
they're like, he's that guy they met one time, and they know him more as that prefect than Gul Dukat.
Yeah.
Cisco gets a call from Bashir, who says a Bajoran freighter has just arrived, and Kai Opaka, the Bajoran Pope, is on board. Cisco and Kira are delighted to welcome her. Bashir eagerly sticks to the group, clearly sensing that Opaka is going to be at the center of the A story this episode.
It's so perfectly Bashir how they're okay, we're gonna go on this trip to the wormhole, just the three of us, and Bashir's oh, what about me? And Cisco's well, I mean, Cisco tries to very politely get out of it. He's I didn't want to interfere with your duties, Doctor. And Bashir's no, I'm totally free. Let's party.
Yeah, exactly. Bashir knows what he's doing.
That guy. I
like how it just perfectly plays into our running gag of Bashir always getting shafted out of the episode. On the promenade, Opaka stares out the window at the place where the wormhole is. She says distantly that she is contemplating prophecy. She expresses disappointment when she hears that there are no transits through the wormhole planned for today. So Cisco calls to reserve a runabout so that he and Kira can take the Kai through the wormhole. As discussed, Bashir stands awkwardly and tricks Cisco into inviting him along, implying he doesn't have anything else to do. It's not clear if he ever finished offloading his medical supplies. When boarding the runabout, Opaka gives O'Brien a pendant to give to his daughter.
Which we never see and is never referenced again.
Okay, I was wondering, it was like, that's gotta show up at some point, right? But
nope, I don't believe it does.
They fly the runabout through the wormhole, much to the delight of Opaka. But she is reluctant to turn back, making some cryptic remarks about prophecy. As they're about to return home, a thing starts beeping, and Kira reports a strange signal coming from a nearby system. Sisko orders a probe be sent out to investigate, but Opaka wants to do some Star Trek stuff. So they decide to investigate it themselves, neglecting to make any attempt to update DS9 on their plans.
Yeah, and that signal's mysteriously gone when, like, O'Brien and Dax show up later. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Did the satellite just be... Was it just like, today I want to lure somebody in. Just, it'll be fun.
Yeah. It was like, they said it was a stream of data and a request for information or something. So maybe it got what we wanted. It's not clear if the civilization who set up this planet still exists.
Right, yeah, I guess they might not. I don't know that we got an indication of how long they were there.
There could be this whole separate storyline where it's like one of their satellites needed to be repaired, and they sent out this signal, and then like the home planet sent a ship out and repaired the satellite and flew back.
It's true, that could happen.
Completely oblivious of any of the crazy stuff that was going on down below. The signal leads them to a moon surrounded by satellites, and they detect possibly humanoid life signs on the surface. They get closer, but one of the satellites shoots at them. The runabout crashes on the surface and is destroyed.
The first runabout lost in the series. The first of many.
I always you never think about these firsts when you see them, but yep. So the Yangtze Kian is dead.
R.I.P. Yangtze Kiang.
Sisko, Kira, and Bashir are able to get out, dragging the Kai with them. Bashir tries to administer Bashir tries to administer... Jesus. Bashir tries to do CPR, but it's no use. Kai Opaka is dead.
Dead.
She joins Napoleon Bonaparte, Joseph Stalin, and Nelson Mandela in hell. As the group mourns, and Kira administers some kind of last rites, they are approached by a bunch of scruffy-looking people with guns. Back on DS9, they are starting to get worried. Dax, O'Brien, and Odo discuss what to do. Dax and O'Brien decide to take out another runabout to go searching for the missing one. They leave Ops in a cool POV descending turbolift shot. Which I don't know if you noticed that, but it was like...
I did not notice that.
It was like over the shoulder of Dax and O'Brien, like looking up at Odo as they like go down. I thought it was a cute little shot.
That is cool.
Every once in a while we come back to them on their runabout, where they gradually follow the trail of the first runabout by saying a bunch of sciencey stuff.
Yep.
Which I will not try to summarize or repeat.
Just technobabble means go this way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, oh, there's some floobers and some doobers over here. But what if we do some doobity-doobers and follow the floobers?
I do like the one bit where O'Brien, it's like, Dax is like, oh, we'll never find that. And O'Brien's like, we will if I build a thingamabob. And she's
like a magnometer.
Yeah. It's like, she's like, I've never heard of one of those. He's like, yeah, I'm going to have to make one. Like, yeah. He's inventing this on the fly and just giving it a technical sounding name.
Yep. Or yeah, it was like a something magnometer. I forgot what it was. Back on the moon, the scruffy people take Sisko and company to their leader, Shella, played by Jonathan Banks, who is best known now as Mike from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. He tells them they are prisoners here, they meaning the scruffy people, and that his group, the Innis, are at perpetual war with a group called the Null Innis. Bashir patches up some of Kira's injuries while Kira laments that Kai Opaka died on some lame moon prison way out in the Gamma Quadrant. Kind of reminds me, there's a movie I saw about the assassination of JFK.
Okay.
I forgot which one it is, but it's like they're loading the president back on Air Force One in his coffin. Mm-hmm. And like one of the Secret Service agents like looks back over at Dallas. He's like, what a crappy place to die.
Oh.
I was like, burn.
The thing was called a differential magnometer, by the way.
Okay. Very important. I'm sure we will see these differential magnometers pop up all over the place.
Well, Brian's going to patent it, and he's going to become very wealthy. And
right. Suddenly, the Null Innis attack. During the battle, Kira kills a couple of Nolanists with a cool shoot the rocks above their heads maneuver. When the battle is over, they are checking the wounded when a shadowy figure walks in. It's the Kai. She's alive. Her place in hell remains vacant. For now.
I don't know. Does she still have her soul?
This is a question for the scriptures.
Like, I don't know how Bajor's religion deals with, death and then the return from death.
Well, the soul is the Pa, right?
Right.
And she said, my Pa and yours will cross again.
Yep.
I don't know what that means. Bashir runs a scan of her and sees that something is different about her, but he can't quite tell what. He says if he could get to the runabout's computer, he might be able to tell more. Suddenly, the dead from the battle start getting up. Shelah explains that the Innis and the Null Innis had been warring for generations, until the leaders of their planet got tired of their bullshit and banished them to this moon to keep killing each other and coming back to life, over and over, to serve as an example to everybody else or something.
It's really just like, just kill them. Like, this is a lot of work a whole lot of work to have done.
Yeah.
For no real gain to you as a society.
Right. Well, I mean, if they had cameras around to
yeah, it's like the Hunger Games.
Show them killing each other, and then they could broadcast it and be like, don't be like these guys. But there's no sign of that. It's just this horrible, nightmarish hell that they're in.
Now I'm hoping that it's like a Truman Show planet, and they are secretly broadcasting this, selling ad time and stuff.
And then they're like, wait, this crazy religious lady showed up, and she's helping them become peaceful. What's going on?
She's ruining the show. Cancel her.
Turn off her microbes or whatever.
Yeah.
Cisco offers to take all of them off the moon when rescue arrives. Shelah is interested. They decide to try to set up a peace conference with the Null to discuss ending the war and getting everyone off the planet. As Bashir repairs the runabout computer, Kira watches over the Kai. The Kai asks if Kira sees anything of herself in these people. In an emotional exchange, Kira begs her to understand that although she's had to use violence in the past, she's not a violent person like the Innis are. The Kai gives her an ear rub and says she needs to face the violence inside her before she can start to move on from it, and that the prophets are waiting for her to forgive herself. That was a nice little scene, I thought.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite part of the episode is
exactly
this very emotional Kira moment that we get in the middle of all the craziness.
Yep. Nanovisitor can really sell these moments.
Yeah.
I feel like. The peace conference between the Innis and the Null Innis leaders takes place, but quickly falls apart as it becomes clear that both sides are happier staying where they are if it means keeping their enemies in hell too.
Yeah, it's just the reveal where he's the guy who was claiming to back the whole thing in the first place is like I would ever let one of you get out of here alive, and the other guy's like, yeah, me too. I was like, oh, okay, so there was no point to any of this. Got it.
Neither one of them ever apparently actually planned to rescue their people. A fight breaks out. Cisco is in the middle of it, but Bashir tackles him and pulls him out, saying that they can't afford to die here, not even once. He explains that once you die and come back, your body becomes dependent on the resurrecting microbes to stay alive, and they are programmed to only work in this environment. Therefore, removing any of the resurrected from the moon would kill them, including the Kai. Just then they get a call from O'Brien, who is able to use his differential magnometers, or whatever, to find their runabout, then do some technical wizardry to be able to get a signal through. He gets to work doing some more technical stuff to get through the satellite network and beam them up. Cisco goes to break the bad news to the Kai, who, because she's a wise old woman, preempts him by saying she'll be staying on the moon, and this is the fulfillment of all the prophecies of her life. The prophets have called her to stay and minister to the Innis and the Null Innis. It's not clear if anybody ever actually gets around to explaining to her that she physically can't leave the moon.
That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know that they... we don't see anyone tell her that, I don't think.
Yep. It's played like she knows she can't leave, but nobody ever actually specifically says that. It's like we need to be on the same page. You can't leave the moon or you'll die. Like, I feel like that needed to be... We don't want any misunderstandings where after she's made peace with the Innis and the Null Innis, she's like, okay, beam me up. And they beam her up and she, like, turns into ash or something.
That would not be good.
Nope. As Sisko, Kira, and Bashir get ready to beam out, Bashir proposes that there might be a way to alter the microbes to allow the prisoners to finally die. So he can do that, but he apparently can't fix the part that keeps them trapped on the moon.
Yeah, that's what I... Like, his whole thing was like, maybe we can it's like anything that can be programmed can be reprogrammed. And I was like, so you can just find, like, the line of code that's, like, require environment X, and then change that to, like, allow any environment.
Right. You know, it's like set to all, or whatever.
Yeah. But the way he was making it sound is, like, less... reprogrammed and more just like deactivated so that they don't keep bringing you back to life, which I'm pretty sure is easier than learning like whatever operating system they're using and then hacking it and like getting into the code and changing it. Like just turning it off has got to be easier.
Well, I was a little confused because he specifically said that they need the microbes like they're dependent on them to stay alive.
To stay alive, yeah.
But so maybe it's like there's a special function within the microbes that does the actual resurrecting, and that part is easy to identify. Or I don't know. We may be overthinking it, but Shella expresses enthusiasm for this being able to die plan, as it would allow them to kill their enemies once and for all. Bashir is immediately like, no, never mind, fuck these guys. The three beam out and go home. The end.
Yep. Like, screw you guys, we're going home.
Which I thought was a nice little, like, ending beat for Bashir, where he's just like, what?
He's
okay, yeah, let's go.
So disillusioned. Like, oh, fine. You guys deserve to be here after all. Your society was right. You suck.
Yep. Yeah, so I have a lot of notes just about these microbes. So we're going to overanalyze this some more.
Okay.
Because I have written down, even if the original designers made these microbes environment-specific, it still seems like this death-ending technology is worth looking into.
Yeah, like you can replicate it and not have that. Like he acts like, oh, well, I guess this is no good now. Like this will never be helpful to us.
It's like, that would be an amazing breakthrough. But I guess Bashir's not interested. Maybe he took some samples home to study, but
it's like also I was just like, so is it environment specific like you're talking about? So you could bring a ship and like replicate the environment within that ship, or is it more like some sort of cosmic GPS where they're like, if they leave the yard, then they're dead?
Yeah. Again, it's it feels like a pretty flimsy plot device. So
yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so as a plot device. The never-ending war and you keep coming back to life, that's actually kind of interesting. It's just that definitely. Like once you dig into it, that they don't go into it enough to stop you from being able to find like a billion holes in it. So
right. So yeah, that's another one of my notes. I feel like this is a really cool like old school like Twilight Zone era premise.
Yep. It's very classic sci-fi. I agree.
It's just like this microbes explanation just doesn't hold water. I wrote down I would prefer a magical explanation for what's going on.
I was going to say the same thing. It's just like there's like a Q-type guy and he's just like, you guys are going to live forever to kill.
Yeah, or just I don't know. I would have thought it was funny is if like Bashir pulls out his tricorder and he's like, I'm detecting some kind of curse placed on this region of the planet.
It's like ancient alien technology that's beyond our understanding. There's all sorts of ways that you could approach it.
Or it's just like this one planet and the special geologic energy in this one area of the planet keeps them alive, and the Innis Null Innis society decided to use it as a prison or something. I don't know. You know,
there's some weird unique radiation from the star that makes you live forever. There's all sorts of possibilities.
It's pretty clear that like the writers didn't have time to include this plot point in their brainstorming session, because like it's like we've just come up with like 8 better ideas right now.
Well, and it was interesting because I was reading about like on the wiki the history of the story and the script, where I guess they had this like a script and it didn't even say what it's about. They just didn't like it, and so they were going to this. They went to this guy, Ira Stephen Bear, was just like, "Hey, I think so and so, like this guy who hasn't worked on the show before, will be able to do a great job doing a rewrite on this." And so at this point, the first episode hasn't even aired, so he's like. He has no idea what these characters are about, like what the history of these characters are, except for what's in the script. So, because he's also never worked on any of the other ones, never seen any of the other ones. Sure. So it's very interesting that way, that I never even considered that as we're going through these episodes, that you could have been writing one of these episodes and not had the character development that happened so far to use in your episode.
Right. Well, I mean, clearly, like, this builds on previous stuff, so...
Yeah.
It's like that guy had some material to work with, or someone, like another, like the main writers, included that stuff. But that's pretty interesting.
Well, and he says that while he was working on this, that first episode came out, and he's like, oh, hey, Kai Opaka, that's an interesting character. So that may have built into it. But that takes me to one of my major, like, okay... I don't think this is a bad episode. It does have the logical problems with the nanites and everything, but I think overall it's a pretty decent episode. I don't like it though, and
it's a good episode, but you don't like it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad episode, but I don't like it, and I think it's largely because of we have Kai Opaka, who was an interesting character that we saw once. This episode has always felt to me like they were just like, okay, let's get rid of her so that we can. And not ever do anything with that character so that we can then bring in this new character, this new story moving forward. And so it's like, I like the character, and then they never did anything with her. They just get rid of her to bring somebody else in. And then today, as I'm reading about it, I find out that there wasn't even that much thought put into it. It wasn't because, they wanted to build this other storyline and have this new character. According to the wiki, it's just like, the writers thought about maybe having like a red shirt be with the group and get killed and come back to life and not able to leave. But then they were like, we want to use a recurring character. Who's the most expendable character that we've seen before? And so that makes me like it even less. At least I thought it was part of a plan before. I didn't like the plan, but I thought that it was part of one. And now it's just like, nah.
Yeah, you're right, because in the pilot, they make Kai Opaka seem really important.
Yep.
And, like, I think there's a line where Kira says, like, she's the only hope to unify all the different Bajoran factions. And so it kind of, like, promises this ongoing story arc where gradually the Bajoran people come together with her at the head or whatever. But, yeah, we saw her that one time, and then we see her this time, and then that's it.
Yep.
So, yeah, I totally understand that criticism. And it kind of calls back to that criticism from the last episode you had, where it was like they gave Odo that key that we never see again.
Yep.
So it's like, instead of being the first step on this, journey, it's just nothing.
Yep, it's just something they put in there and then threw away later when they decided that why not. So, yeah it's... I agree. That is a problem that I'm having as a recurring thing in this, where it's like you had opportunities for good long-term writing, but you didn't care enough to try, and that bothers me.
Yeah, because I feel like, especially these days, because I think we're used to a little bit of a different type of TV writing than there was in the 90s.
Yeah.
Where nowadays it's all about, like, the ongoing story. But, yeah, back in those days, it seems like anytime you introduce a character like Kai Opaka or something, or introduce this Odo key, everybody in the writer's room would be, like, buzzing with excitement for, like, how they wanted to carry the story forward from there. But it just feels like they introduce this thing, and it's like, ooh, that would be cool, and then just everybody just drops it.
Yeah.
So... yeah, I think that's a pretty valid criticism.
Well, and part of it for me is that Deep Space Nine is famously like changing the direct, like along with Babylon 5, which is coming out at the same time.
Yeah.
These are some of the first major TV shows to be moving towards a more long form of storytelling that people in the 90s, like the executives, didn't think anyone wanted to see. And it's true that later on Deep Space Nine does do that. And I think that just increases my disappointment that like early on, there's all these great opportunities that they're just throwing it by the wayside. So maybe, you know, if it had been Star Trek The Next Generation all along, where there's very few recurring plot threads, largely because, you know, they're moving from one place to another all the time. So it's not like it's different in that way from Deep Space Nine. But, you know, if the whole run was like that, where there's not really a lot of, then I probably wouldn't be bothered as much by it now, because like you said, it's just like, well, you know, that was how TV worked at the time.
Yeah.
But it's just, I'm like, Deep Space Nine, I know you can do better than you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, it was this really weird transitional time. Because I know, like Twin Peaks was a big deal, and that was like 91 or something, and that kind of like,
now I look at when Twin Peaks was.
Yeah, it like
90 to 91.
Yeah, and so that was like where, not only was every episode part of the same story, it was like every episode like is like one day, like the day after the previous episode or whatever.
I didn't know that.
Which is a gimmick that Lost also borrowed later. But like that inspired a bunch, or you know, that was so popular, I feel like they kind of wanted to see if they could capitalize on that. So I think that maybe has something to do with it. And also around this time the X-Files started. Mm-hmm. And like the X-Files, I feel, always had a pretty clear vision of what it wanted to be, where it was like, you know, pretty much like the first episode of every season, like 2 episodes during fall sweeps, 2 episodes during spring sweeps, and the last episode of the season would all be part of like an ongoing storyline, and we'll just fill the rest in with monsters of the week, of a varying quality. So I think that was maybe the model that like people were trying to gravitate towards, and I think maybe in Deep Space Nine they were. I mean, that kind of is the model that Deep Space Nine became, sort of. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit different. But yeah, I feel like it's like you say, they set up stuff that they don't pay off, so it's just really not clear to me how committed they were to like an ongoing story in these early episodes.
Yeah. And it seems weird to do stuff like the key thing, to be like, it's not just that he gives this thing to Odo, it's that they take a whole minute to call it out and be like, maybe this will help you find what you're looking for. Or even in this episode where she like, here, give this necklace to your daughter, and there's no reason to do that. Like it's completely random and added, unless you're intending to do something with it down the line, which apparently they weren't. So it's just so confusing.
That's why I say it's just really hard to decipher like what the mindset was at the time, because it's like, how much of this is us looking back with like the current, how much is like the writer's intent. Mm-hmm. Like I cannot quite sort it out, because you're right, it absolutely seems like they've got this whole plan, or at the very least they're trying to lay the seeds for a plan that they'll figure out later or something. Mm-hmm. They're like, okay, well, we can set up this cool stuff, and then that'll be really easy to pick up and carry later. But they don't even do that, so very confusing. But yeah, other than that, like we mentioned, I do like the whole prisoner, like ongoing warring prisoners concept. I think that and the little Kira character beat is the good stuff of the episode.
Yeah, and that's something that like Star Trek hasn't done a lot of before, with the Kira like character beat, where it's just like the personal ramifications of war, where it's just like how it has kind of messed her up for fighting her entire life, and that's not something that we see a lot here, and it's in Star Trek up to this point. So it's that's another thing that Deep Space Nine will take up and kind of do a lot with as it continues. So I like that. And the premise of the episode, I feel like, is something Star Trek has done repeatedly. You could probably find a lot of episodes where kind of the theme is the futility of war.
Sure. I mean, that's very Star Trek. Where, They go to a planet or they meet like 2 alien races or something that they can't let go.
Yeah, like there's the one where Dr. Crusher gets kidnapped by the quote-unquote freedom fighters with a bombing, and that's the first one that comes to mind for some reason.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. Anyway, but yeah, you're right. It's a very, Star Trek. That's kind of like the DNA of Star Trek is they show the world's problems by giving those problems to another race and then having the Federation come in and like show them the error of their ways or whatever.
Yeah.
Except in this case, it totally didn't work. Nobody learned any lessons except the people from Deep Space Nine who learned like, okay, yeah, this is hopeless and pointless.
You can't always get people to listen. This is the lesson that we learned today.
Yep. Maybe Kai Opaka can do it. We'll never find out. I mean, it would be... I'm pretty sure there's no episode where they go back to this planet and, like...
Nope.
Kai Opaka has turned them into, like, a peaceful, like, society or whatever.
There's definitely not. There's a couple, like, I think there's at least one novel that I haven't read, but I had read about, where she makes a return, and I think... I also read that in Star Trek Online, the game, there's like a mission that involves going to this planet or something. But,
interesting.
Yeah, like in it, what I remember reading about the novel was that Jake is on Bajor and finds like this prophecy about how a sun is going to go into the wormhole and bring back like a great. I forget what exactly the word was that's used, but it's like not a prophet, but like a similar word to that, like this religious figure, and so he thinks that means his dad, and so he goes into the wormhole thinking he's going to find his dad and bring him back finally, and then he ends up finding Kai Opaka after a bunch of his own adventures, and she's made peace with these people, and they figured out a way off this planet, and now she's like roaming around, and then I guess she becomes Kai again. He brings her back.
You said that's a book?
Yes. Hold on, I'm looking. While I was talking about it, I was looking up. It is called Rising Sun.
Huh. That's a neat story.
Oh no, hold on. I'm looking at the wrong one. That's... It was a different novel. There's a whole series. Oh no, maybe it was Rising Sun or Unity. It's one of those. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
There's a whole like Deep Space Nine relaunch continuity of novels.
Oh, okay. Kind of like the Star Wars novels that.
Yeah, I guess so.
That eventually
the canon
got replaced
anymore.
by the movies. Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently, I think the Star Trek Online is supposedly the canon version at this point. But it's like a similar story where she's like converted them to the Bajoran religion and made peace between them. And then like the player has to go and evacuate them because there's going to be an attack or something.
It's pretty neat. But yeah, it goes to show like it's an obvious story to follow up.
Yep.
So the other thing, the Kira, which is just like a little like 1 or 2 beat character thing with kind of the big I have unresolved issues about my violent past thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was really nice because it was kind of minimal. It kind of picks up from where we've taken the Kira character so far. It just kind of works. And I just have a funny little thing where it was like when they have their plan to launch a probe for the satellite to shoot at so they can distract the satellite and beam the guys out or whatever. That entire plan is carried out on a computer screen with little animated dots. So I feel like the special effects department was like saving some budget there. I was like, I'm on to you. I know what you're doing.
Yeah, maybe. Apparently this was another episode that was very expensive and more expensive than some of the other ones. So, but that may be because there was a lot of stunt work with the fighting and stuff. I don't know.
That's true. And there were a lot of extras.
Yep.
A lot of those Innis and Nollinus guys.
Yeah.
A lot of costumes. A detail I liked was that all their costumes have like knife and bullet holes in them, which you don't notice at first, but then when you realize the premise of they all keep coming back to life, like you start seeing it and you're like, oh. But as I was going back and rewatching the episode earlier, and it was like these guys showed up. They just have like giant like bullet holes in their armor everywhere.
I didn't notice that. That is cool.
Anyway, any final points from you?
The only other thing that I had was that that I saw on the wiki earlier that there's apparently an outtake from the first scene in the runabout where Cisco is supposed to say like the time we'll be entering the wormhole in about a minute, and he says we'll be entering in the outtake. He's like we'll be entering the wormhole in about an hour, and then the lady who plays Opaka like pretends to look at her watch and says, "Well, I ain't got that long. I've got about 15 minutes."
Nice.
So that would be fine. I like that. I want to go find that outtake now.
Go get that guy who does the Star Trek intakes needs to put that in.
Yeah.
Oh, Morn was in this episode.
Was he? I didn't notice.
He's in the beginning in the background carrying something on his shoulder as Opaka like comes onto the station. So I want to point that out. I noticed that. I noticed that at first. You might think that an episode like this would not have a way to put Morn in the episode, but they squeezed him in.
Well, Quark doesn't show up, which he's in almost all the episodes, so that's kind of a difference. And I think Jake is once again missing here. So.
Oh yeah, it's of course a thing with TV shows that they have to give characters a break, like a light or no appearance episode, like every so often. So I guess it was Quark's day off. Or Armin Shimmerman's day off.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think we have pretty much the full cast. We have Bashir, Kira, and Cisco in the A story. And then Dax and O'Brien on the runabout rescue story.
Yeah, that a lot of this episode feels real easy to shoot to me in that sense. Like, you know, you can film Dax and O'Brien on the runabout, doing their scenes like whenever.
Oh,
Who cares?
I'm sure they knocked that out real fast.
Yeah. But then you have the giant fights and stuff, so that probably takes a lot of work.
Yeah, that was probably you're right, that probably was where most of the time and budget went on that episode. Oh, another thing I'll talk about just cuz everybody loves Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul is Jonathan Banks as Shella, the Innis leader. I thought he did a pretty good job with that character.
Yeah.
Where you can't quite tell if he's like genuine. He genuinely he's one of those wise, genuine leader type characters. Or if he's just a deranged madman. It turns out he's more of the second one. So I thought he rode that line pretty well.
Yeah, I bought it when he was being okay, I want to get off this planet. We'll set up this peace treaty, and then when he's like, I would never let you get off this planet alive. I was like, oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah,
he tricked me.
I think maybe he's gone a little bit crazy because
probably
he kind of when he gives that speech about being banished to the planet or something. He there's a little bit of I've learned my lesson in that speech.
Yeah.
But then, later when he's meeting, I just seeing his enemy face to face just revives his, crazy obsession. He's like, I will kill you. I'd rather stay here myself than let you leave. So, yeah, he was a pretty fun character, just besides.
Yeah.
Okay, ready to jump into ratings or any last stuff?
Ratings, let's do it.
All right, how would you rate Battle Lines?
Okay, so like I said, I don't think it's a bad episode,
right?
But I also don't like it, so right. I'm gonna that's gonna take it from positive to just slightly negative to me. So I'm gonna give it a lieutenant.
Okay, and ratings are based on your perception of the episode, your feelings about it. So that's totally cool.
Yep.
Lieutenant. So you have the Nagus at Lieutenant. You have Captive Pursuit at Lieutenant.
Let me think here. Probably in between those two.
In between?
Yeah.
Comparing episodes is just so hard sometimes.
It's true.
And I think it'll be fun to revisit these ratings at the end of the season. To see. Because sometimes I look at these why did I put that like that? And then I kind of think back on it and I'm oh yeah, now I remember. Anyway, this is tough. I almost want to give it a commander, but I don't think I can. I'm looking at because I gave Vortex a commander. I definitely want to put it between Vortex and the Nagus, but I can't figure out if it should be a 3 or a 2.5. I guess I'll give it a 2.5, because when I think of commander, I think solidly good. Like, doesn't have to be excellent, but it's like you watch it and you're like, that was good.
Yeah.
And this, while I enjoyed it, it was a little flawed, a little goofy at times. So, even though, I mean, like I said, I like the premise and all that, but yeah, I'm pretty comfortable giving this a lieutenant commander then 2.5 and putting it above the Nagus. Then, like, the more I think about it, just the more the Nagus goes into that weird asterisk category of episode that Move Along Home is in. Where it's like, I can't make these episodes fit in with the rest of the show.
But, the Nagus had one of the best guest stars working for it, so...
That's true. Oh, I forgot about that. You know what? I'm putting it under the Nagus. I am changing my... You have totally made a valid point. Wallace Shawn is a powerful trump card. And I think just because of him, that episode will ride on the top of the Lieutenant Commander set of episodes for me. Even though Lady Who Plays Kai Opaka is pretty good. Jonathan Banks pretty good. But, yeah. I mean, Wallace Shawn. Come on.
Just can't beat him.
So, I guess, oh man, we've been going for like 45, 50 minutes already, which is surprising.
Yeah.
And we didn't go on any weird Kevin Spacey tangents or anything like that either, so I don't know if that's good or bad. Are there any tangents you'd like to go on before we wrap up the episode?
Make sure that, if you didn't listen to it already, you go and check out the episode where we come up with a name for for the show. It's the best episode ever.
Go watch our Flavors of Quark brainstorming session episode.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I don't know when that even comes out in comparison to this. Like, it may have been out for a long time at this point when this comes out or something.
Out. I want to get it out like at least by the weekend before this comes out. So, but yeah, go listen to that several times.
Not too long before this one then, but it's just like, yeah, I figure you can tell from the way that this episode had a title that we came up with one.
Yep. We're moving up every day. We're making improvements. We got blanket forts. We got titles. Things are coming up. Undeclared Bajor. A Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch. Yeah, I haven't even started to edit that episode yet. I'm almost afraid of it, but we shall see.
How do you edit something so?
Yeah. Well, it's like a piece of beautiful marble, and now I have to go like chisel a statue out of it. But I'm sure. I mean, the episode. I can guarantee you 100% that it's an amazing episode, and you should listen to it and do things that drive up our numbers on YouTube and whatever platforms.
How many do we have left in this season? This is episode 13, and there's 20 episodes in the season. So we're like left. 2/3 of the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not bad. Who knows what crazy adventures lie ahead for Cisco and the gang?
Oh, I know.
Oh yeah, this is a Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch.
Exactly.
Good tangent, even though it was kind of it was almost too relevant, but
it's just almost not a tangent at all.
Yeah, it's like we weren't talking about like when you mentioned The Negotiator last time, that made me want to watch that movie.
Well, because it's a great movie.
It is
Sam Jackson. Movie. You can't and like pretty young Sam Jackson too. Like in terms of his span in movies, because he started in movies as an older dude.
Yeah, back then I didn't feel like Sam Jackson was young, but
right, exactly.
Because like I felt like he was already an old man in like Jurassic Park, and I think that was like one of the first DVDs, or it was one of the first DVDs that I ever saw.
I had it on VHS, so
It might be. I think it's maybe the second DVD I ever watched. I remember I rented that movie a bunch from Box Office Video because they had it on their DVD shelf. I think the first movie I ever saw on DVD was Arlington Road, which is a movie you probably don't even know what it is.
No.
It's a movie where Jeff Bridges is he's a professor. His wife is like a counterterrorism FBI agent who was killed. And then Tim Robbins and wife move in next door, and Jeff Bridges starts to suspect that they're terrorists. And I just remember that movie, and I remember the DVD because that was the first time I ever heard the concept of a commentary. So I was like, we didn't even have a DVD player yet. We just had a computer. So I put the disc in. Yeah. I saw this thing. It was like, commentary, what's that? And then it was like the director talking about the movie. I was like, oh my gosh, this is groundbreaking and amazing.
See, that's interesting because I remember the first DVD that I got, and it was like junior year of high school. My mom had moved us to Lubbock, and I was unhappy about it. That. So like as a thing to make me feel better, her and her husband bought like me a DVD player, but I didn't own any DVDs to put in the DVD player, so I had to go to the nearby mall and buy a DVD so that I could watch it on my new DVD player. And that DVD was The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson. Oh. And at that time, I didn't pay attention to audio commentaries on that one. It was later on, after I'd bought some other DVDs, that I discovered audio commentaries, and I was like, these are amazing. I love these audio commentaries. And I went back and listened to the audio commentary on The Patriot, and it almost turned me off of ever listening to an audio commentary ever again. Because Roland Emmerich doing the audio commentary on that movie, and he also does it on Stargate. He does the exact same thing. Is literally every sentence begins with "like you know," and sometimes the sentence also ends with "like you know," and it was driving me so absolutely insane that I was like, if this is what these are going to be like, I can't do it.
Roland Emmerich, just what a weird, because he went from making like Stargate and Independence Day to like Moonfall, so it's like,
yeah,
how does a person move backwards that much as a director? I don't know, because, like, you know, Stargate, Independence Day, no one's going to say they were great movies, but, I mean, they were hits, and they're pretty iconic. And then after a while, he's like, what if the world just froze day after tomorrow? It could happen. Let's make a movie about it. He did that one, right?
Now I'm looking at his...
I probably got it all
IMDb. Wrong. Yes, he did do it, although I'm looking at the writing credits. So, yeah, he did Day After Tomorrow, 2004. Yeah, he directed that. I'm looking from the beginning. Most of these I've never heard of early on. Universal Soldier is the first one that I've heard of.
Oh, sure.
And that was, whatever.
I didn't know he did that.
Then Stargate, then Independence Day, then that 1998 Godzilla, and then The Patriot. So he had a run. If you don't count Godzilla, he had a run of like very high grossing movies. Day After Tomorrow wasn't great, but I think it also did okay. Mm-hmm. And then I think he starts going downhill with 10,000 BC, which is his next one. And then 2012, which was also pretty much garbage.
He did that one too. Oh.
And then Anonymous, which I don't remember having heard of. And then White House Down.
Is Anonymous the one about Shakespeare?
Stonewall. I don't know. Let's find out. Independence Day Resurgence. So, yeah, he really started going downhill after, maybe with Day After Tomorrow, I should say. Yes, Was Shakespeare a Fraud is the poster for Anonymous, so yeah.
Oh, wow. That's kind of a weird movie to be in the Roland Emmerich.
To put in that list, right? Yeah. But I think that's after Day After Tomorrow, 10,000 BC, and 2012, which were all giant, but I think mostly failures, especially those last two. Maybe at that point he's like, I need some sort of work. Let me direct a movie, please.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't even know what the story could be behind that, unless he's just personally like a huge Shakespeare buff or something. I don't know.
I gotta see, like, how did Roland Emmerich direct Anonymous? I think looking at his IMDb now, I think he's like he's a 90s movie director. Like,
yeah,
that's
that was his time.
He fell out of his groove. It's kind of like Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith is like very 90s.
Yeah, I mean, he's like the dude. He's like the man for his time and place.
There you go. Yeah, but there's some people who just they didn't move on with the times, and I guess he's maybe one of those.
And we could have a whole separate conversation about Kevin Smith. I don't even want to go into my
right. Although I've heard several people say that Clerks 3 is good.
Oh, interesting.
I haven't like looked at a bunch of reviews. That's just like I've heard several people talking on Reddit and from people that I know. So maybe it'll turn out to be better than the last one.
Yeah, that Jay and Silent Bob one we saw was a little iffy. What was that even called? Jay and Silent Bob do some more stuff, or
yeah, it was reboot. Jay and Silent Bob on. It was called Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. Yep.
Okay.
There you go. There was your tangent.
Yep, we got our tangent out of the way.
Yep.
I was getting worried. So, that does it for us today. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Be sure to check out the description where I occasionally put links to interesting things. I'm Fletcher. About to say goodbye is Data.
Bye.
I wish you all a hearty die with honor. May you live to outsmart the hunters for one more day. And remember to drop by anytime you're feeling homesick. Dun, 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 dun.